Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast. This week, we recap the first round of 12 race at Texas Motor Speedway and look forward to the chaotic mess that Talladega is going to be. And I love Talladega, but odds are we're probably going to have a lot of wrecks. And, I think it'll be a good race, though. Texas, in my opinion, was actually better than I thought it was going to be. Texas usually struggles to put on a good race, but I thought this one was pretty good. Had some interesting things happen, especially there towards the end. And I think the Xfinity race was good too. So we're going to touch on that a little bit also. But thank you all for listening. Continue to rate, review, like, listen, and subscribe. And let's get into it. I wanted to start off by saying this crazy run of predictions that I've been on has been awesome to see. And, picking the winner for, it was either 3 in a row or 3 out of the last 4 weeks, I've picked the correct winner for the Cup Series race. So, very crazy. So, if it continues at Talladega, you're picking anybody in the field can win at Talladega. So, if I were to go and pick the correct winner this week, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm literally going to have to go buy a lottery ticket. I joked with my son last week as William Byron took the lead in the last couple laps. I said, man, I'm going to have to go buy a lottery ticket if he wins this race. I didn't, but he really wants me to, so I might just have to do that if I go 4 in a row. And especially picking winners at Talladega, always a challenge. It's going to take a miracle for you to be right, to be honest with you, but we'll see if I can get it done. But now we're going to jump into Texas, and I wanted to start off with the Xfinity race that was on Saturday. I want to shout out Daniel Dye, my buddy, who took the number 44 Alpha Prime Racing car to its best finish of the season in his Xfinity debut. I saw he's got some news dropping at 1:30 today on Sirius XM NASCAR about, some of the things that are going on for him, and I'll be excited to share that announcement when that comes out. But it's great debut for him, and I'm really proud of him, and I can't wait to see more of him in the Xfinity series. And he's done pretty good in trucks this year for his rookie season, so we'll see what happens with GMS closing down operations in the truck series. He's bound to land somewhere, so I can't wait for that news to become official. And I think Daniel will do a great job wherever he ends up. But the Xfinity race itself was really awesome, to be honest with you. John Hunter Nemechek went on to win, but Justin Allgaier dominated a large portion of that race. And chaos. Sam Mayer, just hits the wall flat out on lap 1 and ends his day. And I thought there was a period of time that Parker Kligerman was going to win. He just kind of made a move on Allgaier and kind of drug them both back to where John Hunter could get around him. And John Hunter ends up winning, and he's just dominated the Xfinity series this year, it feels like. So, of course, he'll be jumping up to Cup next year for the number 42. But I just wanted to, we don't really talk too much about Xfinity on here, but I just wanted to say I really enjoyed that race. I know there was a lot of carnage. Some people didn't like it, but I really enjoyed the Xfinity race this weekend. And I hate that the Xfinity is not going to be at Talladega. It feels like a crime, honestly, that not only trucks and Cup are going to be there, but I would have loved to see the Xfinity race at Talladega. It's always awesome and pretty wild racing. That car, I love the Xfinity car, just the way it races, and it's similar to the Gen 6 in my opinion, just a lighter car. You slide around more. These next gen cars are gripped up, and you're very rarely going to get loose. But I really enjoy watching the Xfinity cars wherever they race at, to be honest with you. So it was a great race, and like I said in the opening, I think that the Cup race was better than expected. I really enjoyed it as well. So, the first stage or so was all right, but as the race went on, it got better and better in my opinion. And the first thing that happened was, once again, man, you just feel so bad for Christopher Bell. I mean, he had a great qualifying lap, didn't get the pole this week, but ran very solidly in qualifying, was up front, and once again, pit road issues. And I respect C. Bell because, in his post-race interview, he basically said, I've got things to clean up on my end before I can start blaming other people. And I really respect that, but I just hate it for him. He's such a good guy, and he can will a thing, man. He's made a couple mistakes in these playoffs, but he proved to everybody last year 2 times in must-win situations that you can never count him out. And he's in an all-right points position. I guess there's really nobody in an all-right points position going into Talladega, but if he could head into the Roval with a plus 15 to plus 20 point cushion, I would feel really good about Seabell's chances to get to the round of 8. But we'll see. I think he's kind of underrated on super speedways, to be honest with you. He's kind of always up front, but ends up in the wrecks. Of course, had that mishap at Daytona a couple weeks ago with Ty Gibbs, but I think Seabell's a pretty underrated super speedway racer, so I'm excited to see what he can do this week. The second thing that happened was Austin Dillon loose wheel, and this was, very this whole weekend, even going back to Xfinity, there was wheel problems, and I hate it for Austin Dillon. He was running decent, like top 12, top 15. When this issue happened, and you could tell he was really bummed about it, but I'm sure he's ready to hit the 2024 button for sure. And then on the restart, after that, Alex Bowman goes 3 wide, spins him and Eric Almirola. This kind of stunk for both guys. Neither one of them ended up with damage, but just a kind of surprisingly aggressive move that early in the race. But, both guys were able to continue. Then Todd Gilliland, another loose wheel, and this ended his day. He was in the 51 this week because Zane Smith was in that 38 car that Todd usually rides in, front rows doing this lease deal where Todd Gilliland, when Zane Smith races, goes to the 51, and Zane takes over the 38. So he was in the 51 this week, loses the wheel, ends his day. And one of the most interesting parts of this race, Kyle Busch comes over the radio and tells his crew, something ain't right. Either the tire's going flat or the wheel's loose or something. They say, try to get it to the end of the stage, which at that point, that's really a 50-50 call. I mean, Kyle Busch is such a great driver that, if he says something's wrong, more than likely something is going to be wrong. But at the same time, when you're in these playoffs and you're going for every single point that you can get round by round, you want to leave him out there and see if he can get some stage points. So kind of I really don't know who to side with here, but ends up spinning around. I still haven't figured out what happened. I still don't know if the tire went flat, if he just got loose. I find it hard to believe that Kyle Busch just got loose, but, I don't know. We'll see. He's done that a couple times this year, but I think something was definitely wrong with the car, and ends up backing it into the fence and just absolutely destroys his car and ends his day. And now maybe a must-win, but, you have a solid run at Talladega, where he won at earlier this year. Have a solid run there, and we'll see going into the Roval, but I wouldn't count Kyle Busch out just yet. Now, the most perplexing part of the race, and of course I was really mad and upset just because the playoffs are here, and you can't be making these kind of mistakes. I really like Ty Gibbs. I'm going to be a fan of his for a while to come, but this was a questionable move, and he admitted it in post-race, or after they interviewed him there, after he was out of the race, that it was totally on him. So I guess that, he gets it, but Denny Hamlin's coming out of his pit stall and just gets flat ran over. So, I just very bad situation all around. Luckily, it didn't damage Denny's car enough to impact him that much. I know Denny was saying he didn't have as much speed, but he still came home with the top 5, and he's plus 37 on the cut line, and it could have been so much worse. If I honestly thought as soon as it happened, I thought he was done too. I know Ty was. His wheel was almost off the car, but Denny, I'm still so shocked that he was able to continue and have the pace that he did. But I'm very thankful for that as a Denny Hamlin fan. So, plus 37, I think Denny's in a really good spot. He's a really smart super speedway racer. If he can just stay out of the trouble and, not speed on pit road, that type of thing, I think he'll be fine. So I'm excited to go to Talladega this weekend and root him on. It'll be just like at Bristol. Anybody that's sitting around me will know who I'm there for and who I'm cheering for, as you'll hear loud boos, and then you'll hear one guy in the crowd standing up screaming, and that'll be me. And, I think, like I said, plus 37, just have a solid day, stay out of harm's way, which is a lot easier said than done at Talladega. But, Denny tends to put himself in really good spots. He's really smart. He don't overdo it. When he has stuff to lose, especially last year's October Talladega race comes in mind because, going into that race, he was kind of he was right on the cut line, I feel like. And he went in there, him and Chris Gabehart had a plan to go run up front, get stage points. Came really close to winning stage 1. Had it all the way up until the tri-oval where Blaney passed him by a nose and won it. But finished second in the first stage. I feel like he finished like 7th or 8th in the second. And just did a really good job getting stage points. And I think after that race, I think they were up on the cut line by like 20 points or something. And ended up making the round of 8. Almost made the championship 4. But as you all know, Ross Chastain's Hail Melon prevented that from happening. But my point is, I think that there's certain guys in the field that are really smart at super speedways, and I think Denny is at the top of that list. Tyler Reddick goes on to win the first stage. I think he made the call to stay out when pit stops happened, if I'm remembering correctly, and went on to win the first stage. Another confusing part about this race was at the end of the first stage, everybody checking up, and Eric Jones kind of gets into Brad Keselowski, who then gets into Truex Jr., and Truex spins. And, said his car wasn't the same after that. Did some damage because I think his tire went flat. He had to drag it back to the pits. Just a very strange situation. You hardly ever see that happen. And, the last time I remember that happening was when Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski did that a couple years ago. And it was just like at the end of the stage, Austin Dillon, I guess he thought he was clear of Brad and just came up into him and took a hard hit. And right at the end of the stage and spun out. Ended Austin Dillon's day. This wreck didn't end Truex's, as he didn't have any damage until his tire went flat. But, just crazy circumstances. And, Truex is another guy. And, finished top 20. Just had a very average day at Texas. But he's a guy, along with Kyle Larson, who I think super speedways have not been good to in the past. Truex is one of those guys that he'll be up front and win some stages at a super speedway, but he's not going to go win the race, in my opinion. He's 0 for in his career. He's 0 for like 30-something, I think, in his career, maybe even more than that. And, he came really close to winning the Daytona 500 the first time that Denny won it. They were separated by like an inch, but other than that, I can't remember him ever being super close to winning. So those guys are definitely going to have a good run to stay in this hunt. I think they're a decent spot, but you definitely want to see Martin run better, as you feel like he was the most dominant car during the season. But these playoffs have been rough at the start, so we'll see for him. But Corey LaJoie spins off of turn 1 and 2, and his tire ends up going down and causes him a lot of damage. to the right rear and pretty much ended his day. I mean, he rode around just severely off the pace. And, Corey, God, I think he'll be up there at Talladega. I mean, he's got nothing to lose at this point, right? I mean, started off the year really well. The last part of the year has kind of not gone as well as they would like. But, go out and have a solid run at Talladega and maybe we can turn things around for the end of the year. So Kyle Larson won the second stage, and it clearly looked like, up to this point that Kyle Larson was the car to beat, especially after Denny had his damage. It honestly seemed like it was going to be another Larson and Denny race. And, once Denny got his damage on pit road, it was pretty much Larson's to lose. But as we find out, he found a way to lose it, which was kind of wild because, he was really dominant. Just throughout the whole race. So, Ross Chastain had some issues on pit road, and it was a sensor or something in the car. Like he went to leave his pit stall and couldn't get it going, stalled, cost him several spots, but he came back to finish second. So, great job by him recovering and making something out of nothing. So, Daniel Suarez spins, coming to pit road, brings out the caution, and, just looked like he was trying to get down Dakota pit road and just overshot it and spun around. Suarez really, we talked a little bit last week when Zane Smith announced that he signed with Trackhouse, that Suarez is kind of in a spot where next year he needs to deliver, and I still believe that. But I'm sure that's another guy that's ready to hit the reset button going into 2024. Now, this is where things got really interesting. I think it had been an all right race up until this point, but, I think it got better after this. Just several things happened, and J.J. Yaley wrecks with 25 to go, and it changes everything. It looked like Kyle Larson was going to coast to a win and lock himself into the round of 8 up until this point, but, they go to restart. Bubba Wallace is on the outside, Larson on the inside, and, they make it a lap. And Larson seemed like that he got into turn 1 just a little bit too much. Tried to check up, and the back end came around on him. I don't really know if it was an aero thing. These next-gen cars, aero-wise, it doesn't really seem like. The only other instance I can think of is Martin Truex and Chris Buescher at Michigan, where they were battling for the win, and Martin got under Buescher and had to really check up, or he would have wrecked himself, or probably both of them, honestly. But just a wild situation that, nobody's fault, I don't think. If anybody's, it was Larson's for getting in too deep. Bubba didn't touch him. Bubba did a great job on keeping it to the outside and missing him. But points predicament-wise, Larson goes from locking himself into the round of 8 with a win to +2 on the cut line. And going into a super speedway, can he make himself have a better cushion after Talladega? That's the question. And I'm not, it's Kyle Larson, so you hate to pick against the guy, but if there's one thing you're going to pick against him, it is super speedways. And, he always finds a way to be involved in these wrecks. A lot of them aren't his fault, but he always ends up in them somehow. And earlier this year even, he was running pretty good at Talladega, and of course we all know had the huge impact with Ryan Preece, and completely tore the right side of his car off, it seemed like. But, can Larson do it? Yeah, but I do not expect him to make up that much of a gap. He's liable to end up in a wreck, or he's liable to run top 10 all day and gets points. But, going to the Roval next week, I definitely, either way, even if Larson were to wreck out at Talladega, I think going into the Roval, you can't count him out from going to the round of 8. So we'll see. Definitely would be you definitely look at Larson's season and these playoffs a lot different if he would have went on to win this week, locked himself into the round of 8, and then he wouldn't have anything to worry about. But that did not happen. And, at that point, I thought it was Bubba's race to lose once Larson was out. But, it just didn't happen yet for him to win in the playoffs. But, hey, Bubba has put himself in a great spot. Only -2 to the cut line, coming in with no playoff points. He's done a great job. And I'll tell you, you all better watch out for that number 23 car at Talladega this weekend, because I think he's got a chance to win himself into the round of 8 with no playoff points. And that would be absolutely wild. So we'll see if that happens, but I definitely expect good things out of that 23 car this weekend. And then the last wreck of the day, Tyler Reddick gets in. It was really, honestly, a weird wreck. Reddick gets into the wall first, and then Jones follows him, and then it just ensues in chaos behind him. Eric Jones, who had such a good run, I want to shout him out since we're talking about him, had a great run going. He was P2 behind Larson almost all day long, and I think he ended up taking 4 tires on that last pit stop. And several people stayed out, and he could just never get that track position back and ends up being in a wreck. But he had great pace. He was doing a great job for that 43 team. They really needed it. They've ran better in the playoffs than they had the year, like in the regular season. But a great run for Eric Jones. I hated to see it end in him crashing and not having a good finish, but I did want to shout him out for a good run. And now, William Byron wins at Texas. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I think it's my 3rd straight correct winner and that I've picked on this pod. And, Willie B came out of nowhere to win this race. Ran top 10, top 15 all day, but was never really a factor until the end. And, as you saw him creeping up and up on there, me and my son were like, he's coming. Like, he's like, he looked at me and said, William Byron might win this thing. And I was like, wow, that would be crazy to pick the winner for the 3rd week in a row. But Willie B is really good, guys. And I think he's just starting. He's got 10 wins now. I think he is coming up. Of course, he's locked into the round of 8. You would think he's in a good position to lock into the Final Four, too, because, he's got a lot of playoff points. He's won several races this year, and they just won at Phoenix earlier this year. So this guy could go win this title. And it wouldn't shock me. And I think that Willie B has done a great job this season. I actually fully expect him to be a contender this week, too. Willie B's really good at super speedways as well. I could totally see him being there at the end. But, we'll see. Those guys have got a big advantage for the round of 8, because now you go into Talladega and the Roval, it doesn't really matter. You got nothing to lose. They're already locked in. So good on the 24 team. Gets Rick Hendrick's team their 300th career win, which is just incredible. A great feat. Definitely the most in NASCAR history. So I think Hendrick has a good, solid group of guys. You got Larson, Byron, Elliott, and Bowman. I know Elliott hasn't really had a good year this year, but I fully expect him to bounce back next year. And Larson seems like the main guy over there, but Byron is here, folks. Like I said a minute ago, if he wins this title, does he transition to that top guy? I guess we'll see. But I think he's really, really good, and I think he's just coming into, what he's going to be. I think he's going to be a guy that wins a ton of races over the years, and it'll be exciting to see him go on and see what he does in his future. So that's the Texas recap. Like I said, I thought it was a pretty good race compared to the previous Texas races. So now we are on to Talladega. And, I want to get right into the predictions. The team to beat, I'm going to say, is RFK Racing. Chris Buescher won at Daytona a couple weeks ago, and Brad pushed him to that win. The Ford's strong on super speedways all year long. I expect nothing different this week, and I think the 6 and the 17 are definitely the guys to beat. But neither one of them are going to be my predicted winner. and I'll predict my winner here in a minute. But I want to get into, the points battle. I think Bubba runs well and gets himself into a good position to try to advance at the Roval. I know that will be difficult for him because, he doesn't like road courses at all. But I think the 23 will have a good run. And, I think Reddick, if he can avoid the pit road miscues and mistakes, I think Reddick can do good as well. So, we'll see. Although everybody's going to be a factor here at Talladega. And I'm going to be in the garage this weekend, and I'm super excited for that. I cannot wait. I was in the garage for the Truck Series at Bristol, but haven't done it for Cup yet. And this weekend I'm going to get to. So, get to go to the driver's meeting. All that stuff. I think I get hot laps in a NASCAR. So it's going to be a great time, and I can't wait to get to it. I really have looked forward to this trip just because of everything that, comes with it. And Talladega is just awesome to witness in person. Like, I've been there several times now, and you get there and it's so big that you can't really wrap your mind around, dang, these cars are about to go 180, 190 miles an hour for 500 miles. And that's just wild. I mean, it's bumper to bumper for that long. And, you got to respect these guys for giving it their all. So let's get on to winner predictions. And, like I said, it's so hard to predict a winner at super speedways. And, I've went around, looking at odds, and my prediction is nobody knows. Nobody knows at super speedways. I mean, the Fords are going to be strong, and that's why that I'm picking this guy that I am. I think he's due. I also picked him to be in my championship 4, so he's going to have to get with it if he's going to do that. But I think he locks himself into the round of 8 with a win this weekend, and that guy is Ryan Blaney. And like I said, I think he's due. He's up there up front, it seems like, at every Talladega race. And he won one, I think, in the Gen 6 car. But as far as next gen at Talladega, he's been up there. And I could totally see it playing out as him and Bubba up front again. And, we'll see what happens there. But I think Ryan Blaney is who I'm going to go with. And just because of the Fords and his consistency at super speedways. Would it shock me if Denny goes up there and wins? Absolutely not. Would it shock me if Bubba wins? Absolutely not. I don't think there's anybody in the field that it would shock me if they won, to be honest with you, just because of how chaotic I think it'll be. Last year's playoff race at Talladega was won by Chase Elliott, and it was a whole lot less chaotic than normal Talladega races. So, of course, that was kind of when all the concussion stuff was going on, and the drivers didn't really know. They didn't really feel safe in these cars and that type of thing. But I think the racing amps up. We saw some 3 wide at Daytona for the first time in this car. Be anxious to see, does that happen here? And if it does, I think we're in for a treat racing-wise. If they opened it up 3 wide here at Talladega, I think you're going to see some great racing. And we'll see. So my pick is Ryan Blaney. Can I make it 4 in a row? We'll see. I highly doubt it just because it's a super speedway. And but, we'll see. And I think these playoffs are shaping up to be great. And I cannot wait to be at Talladega this weekend to witness it in person. And, we'll see who locks themselves into the round of 8, or if anybody does, or if even a non-playoff driver wins this thing. All are possible. And we'll see. But now we're going to get into our question of the week. This week's question of the week is one of my favorite ones. I think it's honestly funny. And it is, have you saw the Talladega Nights themed paint schemes for Ryan Preece and Chase Briscoe? And absolutely, if you follow me on my Facebook page, I absolutely have known about this. This is one of my favorite things that NASCAR has done. And it ain't even really NASCAR, it's sponsorships such as Wonder Bread and Old Spice. If you haven't seen Talladega Nights, first of all, go watch it. It's hilarious. But Ricky Bobby's the main character in that movie, and he drives a Wonder Bread NASCAR. And, that Ryan Preece is going to be driving the Wonder Bread, and Ricky Bobby's teammate, Cal Naughton Jr., drives a Old Spice car. Chase Briscoe will be driving that, his teammate. So I can't wait to see that on the track. That'll be so awesome. I'm sure they're going to be selling some merch at the haulers. I hope they do, so I can cop me a shirt. But I think that's so awesome, and I hope NASCAR continues to do more of this thing. I think it'll be a big hit. So I can't wait to see the cars in person. Of course, I'll share pictures of everything that I do on my Facebook page this weekend. So y'all go like it, JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast. And, I think that I've talked about Talladega, but if you are just now getting into the sport because of this podcast, or you haven't really watched NASCAR much before, go watch this race on Sunday at 2:00. I don't think you will be disappointed at all. I think it'll be highly entertaining, and I think you all will be in for a treat. So until next week, this has been JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast, and you all let me know. I need some feedback on the podcast. Let me know if you all like certain segments. If you don't, I'd really appreciate it. We're all trying to learn here. And I can't thank you all enough, honestly, for listening every week. And until next time, we'll see you next week. And hopefully with more signed memorabilia and for my collection. And I'll definitely post some of those too on there, because I know a lot of my followers, we talk about die casts, so I know y'all really like those, and I do too. I'm a big die cast collector. So until next week, this has been JD's NASCAR Sports Podcast. Continue to like, listen, share, rate, and review. The reviews got up for a minute, and now they're kind of stagnating, so if you all would go rate and review on Apple, I would really, really appreciate that. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.